Well, let's get the thoughts of the New York City Councilman and Trump supporter Joe Borelli, who joins us now from New York. And I've seen your tweets today, Joe. 23 years this has been a decision in the waiting. It's about time you said that Donald Trump took the decision.
Well, right, Christian, and thank you for having me. Again, this is 23 years of fulfillment of U.S. policy. This is not a divergence from that policy. This is something that has been promised since the days of Bill Clinton. It was promised by Barack Obama when he promised it to the AIPAC audience, which is a conglomerate of Jewish organizations here in the state. This is something that has been promised by the Trump campaign, the Trump people, the Trump world since he ran for office. And quite frankly, this is the fulfillment of an acceptance of the reality on the ground, because if you visit the Knesset in Israel, you are in fact standing in Jerusalem and not where our embassy is in Tel Aviv.
Joe, the issue of moving the embassy, of course, was an important bargaining chip in this whole process of peace negotiations. Do you think that the Trump administration has got enough in return from Israel? Because it's not evident what they've got in concrete terms, is it?
Well, I mean, I think the situation in the Middle East has changed quite a bit. If you look back, as far as 1948, or if you even look back a generation ago, this is something that would have been met with a lot more disdain from some of the Sunni Arab neighbors of Israel. I think you are seeing more of a cooperation. I mean, certainly the Arab nations are going to take this to the UN, but they're not going to do any sort of military action. The harshest responses, obviously, other than the Palestinians, were from the Iranians and the Turks. So, has the situation changed? Yeah, I think there's more cooperation between Israel and some of its powerful neighbors than there has ever been. And if you look back just historically, Bill Clinton himself was the one who famously said that his biggest regret of his presidency was actually trusting Yasser Arafat in delivering his part of the peace deal that was proposed in the 1990s. So I think something had to change. I mean, your broadcaster earlier just said that from that report from Gaza. Something had to change. And not recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel was never going to be accepted by one side of the negotiation process, bar none. So this is, again, just the fulfillment of something the U.S. has been promising to do. Fair warning, it's been 23 years in coming, and I'm very happy that it came.
But Caddy's right, isn't she, Joe, that, to get that peace plan, he's talked about the ultimate deal, you need the Israelis to make what could be quite painful concessions. And do you just hand a decision like this, a US embassy to Jerusalem, without getting something back in return from the Israelis?
No, and I imagine there will be some concessions coming. I mean, Jared Kushner in his speech yesterday was pretty clear that both sides will have to give a little to gain what presumably both people want, which is two separate contiguous nations for their people to live and cohabitate in somewhat amount of peace. But the reality has changed. And I mean, we all don't want to see these pictures of Palestinian people being killed, whether they're being provoked by Hamas or not. But let's go back just a few years to 2014 and 2015. These were some of the most violent years on the border of Gaza and the West Bank, and there was no embassy move to deal with at that point. So I don't think the situation has changed fundamentally because of this embassy move. I think the larger geopolitical situation in the region is more responsible for what's happening today. And unfortunately, I think the Palestinians might have to accept the fact that their neighbors are more willing than ever to cooperate with Israel, especially when it comes to the growing Iranian influence in the region.
Okay, Joe Borelli joining us from New York. Joe, thanks very much for joining the program.